Once we have a hang of getting basic shapes on our canvas and adding some other functionality like rotations or translations, another fun thing to play with is adding repetition. And you can add repetition, of course, by just writing out a lot of different rectangles. But another option you have is to create what are called for loops, which let you repeat and change code. So what I can do is I can effectively tell a single rectangle to rotate 50 times and get a nice kind of star shape. So I have my code from the previous video. I've changed the rect mode to center, so instead of the upper left corner of the rectangle being the origin point, now the center of the rectangle is the origin point. I have my translate command so that the rotation is happening and rotating the rectangle from the origin point, so it's literally just rotating the rectangle as opposed to moving it. And the translation is then putting the rectangle where I want it. So again, that's going to look like this. And I'm going to go ahead and add a couple of other things. I'm going to go ahead, and I can do this in or out of the push matrix, but I'm going to do it in the push matrix just since it's going to apply to this specific thing. I'm going to do a fill, and I'm going to do a no stroke. So the fill, I'm going to go ahead this time and go to, say, 20, 20, 60. So I'm going to get some kind of blue. We're using the RGB values, and it's going to be a pretty dark blue. So maybe let me make that a little bit brighter. And so we have that there. Now what I want to do is I just simply want to rotate this so I get almost a kind of star shape. Now I can rotate it, of course, one more time and get a simple star shape, but I'm going to rotate it a bunch of times. And I'm going to do that using a for loop. So what's going to happen is basically these two things I'm going to want to repeat a bunch of times so that I get a star shape. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write a for loop. And the for loop is going to be written slightly differently than the other functions we've been using so far. We have the for, and there's going to be a bunch of stuff in the parentheses here, but there's going to be no semicolon. Instead of the semicolon, we're going to have an open and a closed curly bracket. So what we're going to do in the for loop is we are going to declare a variable. And this variable I'm just calling I, and I'm saying it's equal to 0. But this is a variable, so it can change value. And the next thing I'm going to say is that I'm going to want to run this loop for a certain number of times, and I'm going to run it as long as I is less than 720, let's say. And then every time it runs, I am going to make I increase in value by saying I is equal to I plus 35. And you can change these variables depending on what you want to do. And when I run this, what's going to happen is I'm going to get a rotation, right, so that I get multiple squares. Now, right now, I'm getting a more simple revolution. And to get more, what I can do is change this rotation from a specific number, and I can actually make it the variable itself so that it's going to be I equals 0. So it's not going to rotate at all. Then it's going to be I equals 35, so it's going to rotate 35 degrees. Then it's going to be 35 plus 35 and 70. And so then when I play this, we're going to get a ton of rotation. So it's not going to look like a rectangle or a square anymore. It is going to look like a star or something like that, a kind of irregular star shape or jaggedy circle. And so that is another way to make interesting shapes. And the for loop we are going to use in many other ways. But for right now, we're going to use it mostly when we want a shape to appear again and again without having to rewrite it.